Hey, this is Hardy. This week I got Paul, the craft master with our graphics and animation department, who's going to go through some of this week's tip, and it's in Photoshop, and it's about the power of filters. What do we got this week? The power of filters, huh?
Well, it's been my experience that a lot of people who use Photoshop, even in the industry, don't utilize filters enough. There's really a lot of them, and they can do many different things. So I'd like to show you a few with this picture that I have here. So I'm going to duplicate the picture. The butterfly. Yeah, so I preserved my background, my initial layer, and I'm actually going to make a couple copies. So we'll start out with 4 copies. So we take the first one and we go out to
4 copies of
filter.
Hold on, you just did 4 copies of the actual print of the...
Yes, the original photograph. Because we're going to alter each one. And then we're going to use layers to combine them to create something different. So I take the first one and I go up to filter and I say filter gallery. And then you get this. So if I look up here, there's many folders of all these different brushes and tools. One of the ones I like is dry brush. So you can change the size. It's got a couple different parameters that you can see how it's altering the photograph. I can lower the detail, and it kind of posterizes a bit. I can give it a little bit of texture if I want, but you can see down in this area with how this almost becomes like a folk art painting or something. So I kind of like that, and I'm looking at the numbers too. So it's 8, 2, and 2, and I'm going to say okay. And this is for dry brush, and look what it did. So it's been my workflow. I like to click on the layer and name it. So this is dry brush, and the numbers were 8, 2, and 2. And the reason why I do that is so that I know the information that it took me to get to this layer. So then I'm going to shut that off and go back to the original photo itself. Now, I'm going to try something here that I'm not sure. Right. So we're going to go to, if I blur this a little bit, I go to my blur gallery, or actually blur. I want to go to a Gaussian blur. Okay. We're just going to put a slight blur on this, maybe 2 points, maybe 3, and hit OK. Now, why would I want to make the photo blurrier? You might ask yourself that. Well, if I take this layer and I make it an overlay, look what it does to the photo. It almost feels a little sharper. It's more enriched. Okay, so this is my overlay.
It looks like it added contrast to the photo. It looks like it gave it.
Yes, it adds contrast. Right. It does a lot of
and a little more separation from the background.
Right. So this will become an important layer later on, and we're going to shut that off and go back to our original photograph. And then let's go back up to the filter gallery again. Okay. All right, and we're going to...
So far you've messed with only 2 of the layers?
Yes, only 2.
So now you're going to go to the third layer.
So I'm on the 3rd layer, and I'm looking for something that, you really want to play around with this stuff. You don't want to try to, do the same thing every time. That's kind of nice, the way I'm getting broad swashes of color, and it's really, I'm losing a lot of the detail, but it's more of like almost like an impressionistic painting. And this is, let's see what happens if the brush size is really big. Yeah, I kind of like that. So it's 10, 4, and 12, and we're going to say okay. And this was, now I forgot which one it was. So if I go back to the filter gallery, it's going to bring it, I believe that was sponge. Okay, so it's canceled. And that's a good way to find out what you did when you lose track. And it was 10.
I like the
2.
You name it, and that helps you keep track of what you did to it too.
When I've had other artists look at my files and see that I've organized my workflow this way, they're astounded. So I turn this off, and I'm going to actually need another layer. And this one I want to take, and I want to go back up to filters. I'm looking for something else. And I can look in the brush strokes, maybe distort. Now there is one called posterize, poster edges. Intensity of the edge, posterization. edge thickness. This could be useful later on. That's kind of what I'm looking for. So this is poster edges in 7, 4, and 1. Because we're going to want to layer. This right here almost looks like either a stained glass picture or a cartoon. And I'm going to go back to my original layer and make another copy. And I think with this one, I don't know what I want to do with this one yet. But I'm going to look around and see what, filters I have available. Stylize.
So now we're up to 5 layers. So the power of layers. How many layers do you when you start a project? Do you set a limit, or do you just go by?
No. This is a very painterly process where I have literally used sometimes over a dozen layers. Like this ocean ripple layer looks pretty cool, but I'm looking for something that looks different than the other layers. Smudge. I think I'm gonna go ocean ripples. But we want something very soft because I want to contrast what I'm doing in the general picture. I actually like this the way this is going. Okay, so here we have 14 and 3, and this is ocean ripples. And that was 14 and 3, I think. You can correct me if I'm wrong. So I like this as a start. Let's look at some of our layers. Now here's our dry brush layer. I'm going to put that under here, and then this layer I'm going to decrease the opacity. So now what you're getting is there you go. So ocean ripples is at 50%, while dry brush is at 100%.
Now does it matter?
It's kind of I kind of like that.
Does it matter in what order the layers are applied?
Yes.
How they're stacked?
Yes. So if I put dry brush first, if I put ocean ripples back to 100%, you will get different effects based on how you stack it. So that's kind of neat too, but I think I like the other one better. See, that's 100. So we're gonna put dry brush underneath, ocean ripples. To me, this has a very painterly feel to it. I mean, what do you think, Marty?
I like it, but I like the fact that when you play with it, it makes a difference on each layer, and then it makes another. You could, so it's cool to understand that having the tools is one thing, but how you use the tools is differently, and you can reorganize it, and then that's how it's used. That's the part of the creative process. Like I've always told people, part of the learning curve in my craft is you got to develop your mind first. You got to know your gear. You got to know your equipment. You got to know what you're doing. Then you got to develop your eyes. You got to visually understand, what the framing is, what the shot's supposed to be. And you got to develop your ears. You got to listen to the client. You got to listen to your director. You got to listen to who's ever asking for the graphic. So this is a great way to understand that the tools that you have and how you use them based upon who's asking for what and what you have to do visually, because you see what you know when it comes. And I do like your tips on organizing, because sometimes I always find in the learning curve you can lose track because you're focused on what you have to do. You can forget about what you did do.
Nothing is worse than a coworker who just makes stuff and doesn't do it in a way somebody else can understand.
Oh, you mean having similar workflows?
Yes, it's like, because as a professional, someone is eventually going to have to pick up your work and do something with it, and to organize it in a way that other people can understand what you did is really helpful. So now I've got 3 layers I'm working here. I've got poster edges at 25%, so that adds a little bit more contrast. I like it, makes it a little more 3D-ish, but it's still keeping some of that painterly quality. And then you've got ocean ripples in there, which kind of diffuses it a little bit. And then the dry brush underneath it, which also, everything affects everything else. So now we've got our sponge layer on top. And what I did before with poster edges was I set it to color burn. So I was playing with the different treatments of the layers. So you don't have to always stick with normal with each layer. I like the way the color burn affects the shadows. And then we have a sponge that we're putting on top. And let's see what this looks like with something like...
Now let me ask you, but when do you sign off on it? When is it okay? All right. Because you're like, so normally if you're doing something like, so on a shot like that, it could be so like you could be asked to do a graphic because butterflies are being attacked by some insect that's invading or what species, and you have to have a graphic that needs to be, and so you build the graphic, and they say, well, you need a good background element to put behind it. So when do you sign off on it? Okay, and say, all right, this is where I want to be. Now I can put my graphics and text, and and then animate it or have it set for. So in the Photoshop workflow, Paul, let me ask you: you create the photo, the background element that you're going to use for the nightly news element. Then you have to export it, and then import it into another. So what is the workflow from Photoshop into what?
Well, this could go into you could use this in After Effects, and Photoshop actually does have its own animation capability. You could turn this into a short QuickTime clip that could be used to put on air or something, but it wouldn't really animate much. That's a whole different thing, but I would eventually use this as a background plate to animate text over it and provide information for the story. Like, if you're tracking the decrease in population of monarch butterflies, because they're dwindling out on the West Coast. So you would export this as a single frame. And we're coming to that where we're going to put this all into one folder. And then, with this, I'd like to get back to the sponge layer where I kind of like what's happening in some of the areas, but not all of it. So if I do this and I click on, I'm actually going to add a mask layer to this. So if I go and I get my elliptic tool and make a really big ellipse like this, and then I feather it, I go selection, modify. I want to modify my this thing here, and modify feather. I want to feather this, and we're going to feather like 300 points, which is big. And then from there, I can create a mask layer. So now this has a mask layer on it. And if I invert this, so it affects the outer edges of this, as you can see down here. But so it's kind of softening the outer edges a little bit. But then I want to apply this as like a darkening layer. So if I do this as a multiplier, then you can see like it's actually starting to create a vignette. And if I increase the opacity of this, you'll see it even more.
Oh yeah.
So you see how this is.
Yeah. You see how it's vignetting. Yeah.
Which is right. So the last layer that I want to bring forward is the overlay layer, which was this thing. So this is at 100%, but I can dial this back, and it's really kind of darkening a lot. So now I'm going to go through this process, and I'm going to start eliminating layers to see if I get something better by not having all these layers. Because even though it's fun creating them, you don't need to use them all. So I'm thinking maybe the dry brush layer isn't needed. Well, yeah, because it's kind of making the dots of the monarch butterfly less visible. So let's take that out. So I'm going to grab all these layers that I made, and I'm going to put them in a folder. And then I'm going to do Control E on this. And what that does is, well, I didn't exactly want to do that. I want to make I want to duplicate this, and then I want to flatten it. So now I'm noticing that when I turn off its copy, stuff is disappearing. So the dry brush layer was at 100%. I'm going to turn that back on just for the sake of this demo. So when I turn off the copy, there's no change. So I know that it's 100%. And the end of the day, the folder is 100% opaque. And if I do, there's another trick sometimes to force when you have a whole bunch of stuff that has different effects and layers. And if you make a blank layer, and then you do, I think it's Control E. So you're merging that whole folder into one picture. So now we've got just one picture. But I can go, and that's the difference between my original and the one I've treated. Now you might say that doesn't look like it did much, but I think it's a better picture. And I can also then take this, and I can take that whole duplicate of that whole folder, and I can go, I want to blur this. So I want to go to Gaussian blur, to really your best blur. And we're going to blur like that much. Okay, and hit OK. And then I'm going to put a mask on this. So I'm going to make a circle, and we're going to feather this. I think 300 was too much. I'm going to down at 250. Okay, and then from there I'm going to make a mask. Now you can see it's very blurry on the inside and sharp on the out. Well, if I reverse this, if I invert it, which is Control I, now I've actually created where the butterfly is in more focus.
Yeah, it gives a little depth of field there.
Yes, so this is depth of field. And last but not least, I can create a blank layer, and I can just flood fill it with a color. Let's pick like a brown. Give it some earth tones. And I'm going to flood fill this like that. And then I'm going to take this mask and apply it to here. And then I'm going to take this layer and say darken or multiply. It's darken color burn. So you know, again, you're going through, there's overlay. That's kind of interesting. But if I do multiply and then I dial back the whole layer, it just adds a little bit of darkness. So this photograph, the flowers are more painterly. It almost looks like a, like a watercolor or acrylic painting, and the butterfly is more highlighted. What do you think?
Really good.
And here's our original, so you can see for comparison. That's the original photograph, which is kind of blown out. The areas are washed out. It's not very in focus. And I think this is a much better picture.
Well, Paul, that was a great example of the power of layers, Paul. The power of layers. I can't wait to what you're going to have in store for me next week on the...
Thank you very much, Marty.
All right, Paul.